Hey, hi folks. Welcome to another live stream. Today we're talking about navigating the smart building IoT platform landscape. I hope everyone's having a fantastic week. Thank you for joining me. I do appreciate it. I know everyone's busy, so it's great that you can spare 30 minutes, and I think we can cover some really interesting topics today, and hopefully you guys will learn something. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. While we wait for others to for others to join, here are some of the subjects that we're going to be covering today. So just to let you know, if you do have specific questions, then very happy to take them. I think the best way to do that is at the end. I've left some time so maybe 5 minutes we can take some questions or actually comments as well, because I think we're covering some really interesting topics towards the end, mainly about AI, and it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think. We're also recording the session, so if you've signed up on LinkedIn, you'll get that in your feed. But also on YouTube, you'll be able to find a recording, which there'll be a link, and you can share that with whoever you want. So best place to find us on YouTube is if you search for the Smart Building series, and then you'll find our page, our channel, and you'll find the recording, and that'll be up as soon as we finish. We have a full program of research throughout 2025. So if you want to stay in touch with the things that we do, you can subscribe on our LinkedIn page. And that's probably best. We publish all links to all of the articles that we write and all the reports and things like that there. We also have a newsletter as well. So you can sign up on our website for that. And every Wednesday we send an overview of all the things that have been happening in the market as well, not just the stuff that we're covering. So today, if we look at that slide, I'm just going to give you a little bit of scope of what we're covering today, look at what the Internet of Things in commercial buildings kind of looks like, both in terms of how it's made up in layers of technology, but also of market projections, what we think the value of the market is. Then we'll specifically look at software platforms. And then, as I said before, a slide or two on what the impact of AI could potentially be for software business models. And then finally, we can take some questions. So, in terms of the scope, so what I'm going to be presenting today is some of the research we've done into the market for IoT in commercial buildings, or as we like to call it, the BIoT. And we've been covering the subject for over a decade now. So this is kind of like the latest study that we've done on the subject. We did previously do, and I did a stream about this last month or the month before on IoT devices. And this is kind of like the companion research, where we're going to shift the focus to look more at the platform layer, which, is really specialized software that's about connecting all of those sensors and controlling the different systems in commercial buildings. What exactly do we mean by building IoT platform? It's generally some kind of software that integrates multiple building operations. So that could be across HVAC, lighting, access control, energy management. More than likely in today's market, it's going to have a cloud-based architecture, and it would generally work across multiple different vendors. it's not just about collecting data. Okay, it's also about making that data actionable, both in terms of how it's displayed to the user, but also like in terms of the decisions that it's making about controlling the operation of the building. And the scope of our work in commercial real estate is specifically around office, retail, hotels, warehouse, and data centers. We deliberately exclude residential and industrial applications, and we focus on those commercial building market dynamics. Yeah, and how did we put this research together? Well, as I said, like it's the culmination of over a decade of research, but we also do interviewing across the value chain. We look at the different vendors, we look at their financial performance, we look at also regulations in the market, various different data sources, and then we use all that to develop our forecast for what we think the market is worth. Okay, so this graphic kind of explains how we think about the building IoT market. Unlike a lot of the technology markets, smart building space is quite fragmented, and there's multiple vendors across multiple layers. What we've done is try to sort of just map some of the complexity here within these 5 tiers that captures some of the value and how the technology gets delivered in smart buildings. If you start at tier 1, what we've called traditional building automation systems, that's effectively your HVAC, lighting control, etc. That's been around for decades. Obviously, still important, still installed in many buildings, but the purpose of this research, we don't include it in our analysis of the IoT. So what we do include are tiers 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 2 is the enablement hardware. That's the frontline devices, the sensors, the monitor temperature, occupancy, air quality, the smart meters that track energy usage, etc. They're the devices collecting all of the raw data. Tier 3, connectivity services and related hardware. So these are the gateways, the routers, the networking equipment that move the data around the building and up to the cloud. Tier 4, and this is where we'll get more into this in a bit, but this is sort of the software, the data integration, analytics, the application layer, if you will, where all that sensor data gets processed, analyzed, and turned into actionable insights. And this includes the IoT platforms that I mentioned earlier, the software that actually adds the smartness to smart buildings. And then finally, tier 5, that covers the professional value-added services. So that's your consultants, your MSIs, your cybersecurity specialists, the people that actually kind of make this work in the real world. So it's really tiers 4 and 5, the software and services that determine whether you actually get value from the data you're collecting. If I move on now to a quick slide about our market projection. And really it's, where we think the market is headed. So, what we did this year, given some of the kind of noise around trade, global trade, and some of the supply chain disruption post-COVID, we developed actually 3 scenarios rather than just a single forecast. But the one that we used as our baseline scenario for the report is that blue line in the middle, and that projects growth from $64 billion last year, 2024, to just over $100 billion by 2030. So around an 8% compound annual growth rate. I think the key insight really is that we're seeing a shift in where the value is created. So that's really the data integration, analytics and software, the platform layer, as we discussed. That's the fastest growing sector of this market, and we think it's growing at about 10% annually. This isn't just a growing market; it's also transforming. It's from this kind of previous, much more hardware-driven market to software and services-driven. Those tiers 4 and 5 that I mentioned earlier. So let's talk a little bit more about the IoT platforms. So, as I said, these are kind of the platforms that take those fragmented data streams from your HVAC system, your lighting control, your security system, energy management, and turn them into something more actionable. And what's really significant is how these platforms have evolved. So they've enabled you to integrate previously siloed systems and get some centralized visibility across multiple properties. That's of real use to those companies that have large portfolios of property that they have to manage and operate and maintain. And what we've seen, of course, is the market has got quite confusing because everyone likes to call their solution a platform. So to kind of cut through that, we've tried to do some mapping, and I'll show you that in a minute. But really, there are kind of 3 distinct categories, right? There's what we've called foundational cloud platforms. So that's things like Microsoft Azure, IoT, AWS, IoT Core. These are kind of the general purpose infrastructure services that a lot of vendors use. Second are the data integration platforms. And they focus on connecting different building systems and getting the data out of them. And then third are the kind of purpose-built IoT platforms specifically designed for some kind of function within the commercial building. And these platforms are processing data and increasingly using, of course, AI and machine learning to do that. And then generally have some kind of application layer, right? That's in its simplest form, that would just be providing a user interface, like some dashboarding for people to look at the data and see what some of the trends are. Of course, there are other big considerations within this. So security, data ownership, that's a massive subject in itself. Operational resilience, and also sustainability, right? Like collecting sustainability and doing that reporting as well. That's now becoming an even more key consideration. So as I said, we've done some mapping on this. Now, it's probably, I don't know if you can see that on your screen, but if you can't, you can go and find it on our website. And if you look on the homepage, you'll find a link to the report, and there's you can find it there. But essentially, this is just a ecosystem mapping of different vendors, and we've conducted sort of like a bit of a survey of the market. And I think first of all, it's important to know that this isn't sort of intended to include every single vendor, right? But what we've tried to do is just to give kind of an overview of some of the different functions and different types of platforms that exist. And also, I think it's fair to say that there are many vendors that could arguably fit into multiple segments, depending on their strategy and how that can be interpreted, or the type of software they have. But for the purposes of this mapping, we just placed each platform into the segment that we thought best reflected its primary position and functionality. So clearly there is a lot of cross-domain integration. You've got energy management companies moving into occupancy analytics. You've got security firms adding environmental monitoring, workplace experience platforms integrating with HVAC, et cetera, et cetera. But as I said, like what we've done is just looked at the primary function of each of those of the platforms. So I think one of the interesting takeaways if you there look at unified platforms, and that contains a lot of the bigger companies, the building automation giants, Siemens, Schneider Electric, Honeywell, Johnson Controls. They have been building more unified platforms that consolidate some of the functionality for operating and maintaining buildings. But meanwhile, what we've also seen is some of the more newer, more agile companies have been creating these sort of cloud native applications that are retrofit friendly, and they can deliver sort of quick results without massive infrastructure overhauls. So it's a really interesting landscape. A lot of the convergence, I think, is down to the fact that customers don't want to have to manage, multiple different platforms, all with multiple monthly subscription fees. I think what they tell the vendors is that they want a more unified view of building operations. So the result, there's a lot of competition. There's increasing number of partnerships across domain. And there's increasing consolidation through acquisitions. And I think so far what we've seen is some of the winners in the platform market have been able to deliver both, depth in their core speciality and breadth across building operations, all while, being easy to deploy and integrate with existing systems. So I wanted to look at AI. It's increasingly interesting area, of course. There's a lot of noise about it. So rather than sort of focus on the technological implications of it today, I actually wanted to look more about its impact on how this kind of software is purchased and sold. And, I'm firmly of the belief that AI is going to commoditize software. When a customer can create their own customized software applications relatively cheaply and quickly, software functionality is going to stop being, anyone's competitive advantage. So that traditional SaaS model that we've become used to, where you can paying monthly subscription fees for each platform, my opinion is that is going to look increasingly, it looks increasingly likely that it's had its day. And it's not just, I think, not just AI that's driving that as well. I think you're seeing, as I mentioned earlier, like that there's some fatigue from customers around all of these subscription fees. Paying monthly charges for separate building applications is, kind of onerous on customers. It's harder to control. They're not exactly sure. It's not often tied to, what outcomes and what they think is value for money. And actually, I also had a comment from John McFarlane at Place OS, where he said he's actually seeing demand from customers for perpetual licensing again, sort of how software used to be sold. Where customers can just buy if they want to buy something once and own it, then they can. And I think that's really interesting. But what I think there could be a real shift towards with AI is what a lot of people call outcomes as a service, right? So instead of selling software, you're selling results. And I mean, this isn't theoretical in terms of business model. It's exactly how, for example, energy service companies have operated for decades. You deliver energy savings and get paid by taking a percentage of those savings. But that's energy, and actually that's something that's easy to measure. So it's not something that's really proliferated across IoT platforms. But a future model, I think, is for software is where it almost becomes invisible, right? it's embedded into the broader managed service delivery. So, for example, take facilities management. A CAFM system might just be one small component of a wider service where clients pay for the specific outcomes. So, you as the supplier, you're fixing problems, you're maintaining spaces, you're optimizing operations. That's all kind of and the software is just like baked into that service delivery. It's not something that that is distinct. Another example might be workplace experience. Customers pay for a managed service, say, to deliver the best meeting room experience. So the booking system, the way visitors are managed, the audio-visual hardware and software, they're all delivered as a managed service package. And that includes maintenance and support, right? If anything, anything goes down in the meeting room, you can call someone, get it fixed straight away. And also replacement of equipment when it becomes obsolete. So that is just all rolled up into one managed service. And really, then it's the ones that own the customer relationship that would be in the stronger position as we move towards this more commoditized software experience. Vendors, I think, really are going to have to be more creative about business models. This old playbook of monthly software as a service fees, I don't think it's going to last too much longer. And the winners are going to be the ones that can align, their revenue with customers' actual outcomes, not just providing software updates and new features. That's not going to really cut it anymore. Well, I hope that was interesting. Get your questions in or just some comments. I don't know what you think of my thoughts there on AI. Whether you guys are seeing that, what you're hearing from customers around what they think about these recurring fees, and whether they want to move back to kind of a more perpetual license model. What you can see here is the report that a lot of the information I showed today comes from. There's the QR code. So if you scan that with your phone, you can go to the report page. Yeah, and just to let you know, we do sell a subscription to our research. So you can buy an enterprise subscription, which gets you access to all of the reports that we publish in a year, and all of the content that we produce, all of the articles as well on our website. Something that might be of interesting to people as well, if you can see here. So this is from a application, a workflow application called Relay, right? I've been using this, and we have our own RAG, retrieval augmented generation system, where you can query all of our data across all of our reports using a model, and that's available by API. So I was able to plug that into a workflow, this workflow automation application. Relay, I think it's relay.app if you look for it online. So this is a little example of like a nice workflow. If you get an email from somebody that like a new prospect, maybe you've not heard from them before, you're not really aware of what the company does or who the person is, you can forward that email to a specific email address in the first stage. Second stage, then it extracts from that email the name and the company using Gemini model from Google. And then there's an agent then that is able to search Google and look for their LinkedIn profile. Then the next step is when our API gets involved. And you can see there on the right hand side, that's how you query our data. You can see their query write a description for the company. So it takes the company name, writes a description of it, and actually a little SWOT analysis. We send that back to the Gemini model along with the profile data, and then you get emailed back all of that information. Happens within like 30 seconds. So it's a pretty nice little workflow, and that's just one example of what you can do now with these different models and with our data. Yeah, finally, we do provide advisory services as well. So if you want to get, or if you need some data, some research done on market sizing or forecasting or competitive landscape analysis, then yeah, reach out to us. We'd be really happy to hear from you. Okay, thanks for listening. I hope you found that interesting. Let me see if there are any questions. Give me 1 second. Okay, got a few things in here. Look quite a lot like comments. So there's one here from Nick Sanchez, actually replying to John McFarlane, who made that comment I said earlier about how customers are keen, or seem to be more keen, on perpetual licenses again. So Nick says, admitting my bias here, but the challenge I see is that then owning the need to continue to improve, develop the product as your own needs evolved. Would annual in advance models represent a middle ground, or even multi-year in advance? Yeah, I think that, it's really, it's one of those things that you have to try and see and how customers react to it. And I think ultimately, a lot of customers have, specific needs, requirements. They don't all want the same thing at the same time. So it might be that models have to kind of adapt to different customers. I think that is, I can't see any other questions or comments on LinkedIn anyway, but if you do have any, there's a couple of comments, but nothing that we, there's something here from John. No. Let's see if there's just quickly anything on YouTube. I can't see anything. There's a few comments there, but if you want to read them, then you can go online and see them. Okay. If you do want to ask a question afterwards, feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. Happy to answer anything offline as well. So yeah, just to say thanks a lot for listening. I hope you enjoy it. As I said, you'll get the recording. If you want to share that with your colleagues, that would be great. And see you on the next one. I think probably take a break now for summer, but back in August or September with more content for you. We're going to be producing an update on our startups report. So we're looking at how much money has been raised and what the M&A looks like. And will be published next month. Thanks again.